I've been on the road for 22 years, and until that early morning I would unconsciously repeat that I'd seen it all. A blizzard in Wyoming, a dust storm in West Texas, a fire closing a road in California, an attempted robbery in a parking lot in southern Arizona. I carried that pride like a lucky charm. I was the guy who can endure, who doesn't stop for anything, who knows how to read the road. That week I was driving as a freelancer with a contract I couldn't afford to lose. Automotive parts leaving Albuquerque, New Mexico, with delivery on the other side of the line, near Phoenix. The payment covered 2 overdue installments on the truck and still held the insurance for another month. But I'd been accumulating bad nights. I'd slept little in 2 noisy yards with sirens, people slamming doors, trucks maneuvering nonstop. I felt functional, but I knew it was an illusion. The right thing to do was pull over to a decent truck stop and sleep. I knew it. But the route was clear, the weather dry, the early morning cool, and I fell for the most dangerous phrase in the profession. Just one more stretch. To keep my eyelids from rolling back, I did what I promised I wouldn't do again. Strong caffeine, mint, and one of those cheap stimulants sold as energy. It was conscious self-sabotage, the kind you justify with bills and invoices. The highway was long and empty, a straight line across the desert. Dark stone on one side, a plain of low shrubs on the other. The asphalt drank in the light. I kept the radio low so the silence wouldn't become its own noise. I looked in the mirrors as if checking my own conscience. Everything normal, everything predictable. And it was in this automatic state that I saw the first thing. On the right shoulder, a few meters from the lane, there was a small, light-colored object, too still to be trash. When the headlights cut out its shape, it took me a while to process it. It was a small, worn teddy bear, one ear drooping. It was sitting there, as if someone had placed it there. I gave a dry laugh to dispel the strangeness. A stuffed animal in the desert, at dawn on a freight highway. It might have fallen from a car. Maybe. And I drove past, telling myself it was just a detail. 2 kilometers later, another clear sight, this time near the white line. A child's sneaker, too small with its laces tied. What stopped me wasn't the sneaker. It was the idea it evoked. A child. I slowed down reflexively and felt my shoulders stiffen. I tried to rationalize. Family stopped on the shoulder, child lost, end of story. But the sequence didn't match a random loss. Stuffed animal sitting. Sneaker put away. And I was alone in the dark, with a truck I couldn't abandon. The third piece completed the pattern. A school backpack fallen to the side, open, with a notebook sticking out, and a small jacket folded as if someone had dropped it in a hurry, but still folded. The objects were spaced out like a trail, not like a mess. And my mind, tired and dangerous, began to piece together a story on its own. I felt my stomach clench. It wasn't immediate fear. It was responsibility. I searched for a cell phone signal and saw the bar go up and down like a joke. I thought about calling the police anyway. I thought about pulling over, grabbing my backpack, looking for identification. And at the same time I heard the old part of me, the part trained by years of road stories, whispering that this smelled like a trap. The moral dilemma wasn't elegant. It was brutal. If I drove straight past and there was a lost child, I would carry that burden forever. If I stopped, alone, in that darkness, I could become the next disappearance. I slowed down, flashed my hazard lights for a second, and then turned them off. Even that light seemed to betray me. Then came the sound. It wasn't a clear scream. It was a muffled child's cry coming from somewhere ahead and to the right, carried by the wind. My body reacted before my head. The skin on my arms crawled and my foot wanted to ease off the accelerator. A child's cry opens a door inside you. I looked towards the shoulder of the road, searching for movement, anything that would justify it. I saw nothing. The crying came again, the same, with the same rhythm, as if someone were pressing play and pause. And soon after I heard a short metallic snap, the sound of something being handled. That's what shattered my trust and brought clarity. The sound wasn't coming from a living object. It was coming from a source. And someone was there, close enough to control it. I didn't stop. I changed the way I was driving. I moved the truck a little more towards the center of the lane, away from the shoulder. I only slowed down enough so I wouldn't have to brake hard if something came into the road. I checked my mirrors, lowered my hand to the horn without using it, and kept my eyes on the road. And it was during this minimal adjustment that I saw the first sign of people. A shadow stood out behind a reflective sign, too tall to be an animal. It was only a second, a silhouette against the headlight. I didn't see a face. I didn't see clothes. Only the certainty of someone standing still, motionless, waiting for a reaction. And I made the mistake they wanted. I tried to confirm it with my gaze for too long. Something hit the side of the truck, a dry thud, metal against stone. Another blow, then another, as if testing my attention. They weren't trying to knock me over. They wanted me to stop to check the damage, get out, open the cab to their world. I felt a burning anger rising. The anger of realizing someone was playing with the most dangerous decision on the road. I kept the truck running and refused to look at the sign again. The cab is a cocoon, but it only works if you don't open it. The crying returned, now closer, and I saw the origin of the charade. On the shoulder of the road was a dark pickup truck, without headlights, only a weak interior light flickering on and off. The passenger door was open. On the ground, right next to it, was a plastic doll. The scene was set up for a specific type of person, someone who believes there's enough time to help and still get back to the truck. Behind the open door, I saw an arm appear and disappear. Just the arm. Enough to prove it wasn't my imagination. In that split second, I was certain there wasn't a child there asking for help. There were people using the idea of a child as bait. And I, with my pride gained from years on the road, almost took the bait. They tried the second part of the plan, forcing a reaction. Something rolled from the shoulder onto the road, a plastic box heavy enough to force me to swerve or brake. I swerved the minimum, without crossing the line too far, without creating a panic scene. Behind the box, another smaller object came as a test. It wasn't meant to hit the truck. It was meant to put me in a situation where I had to pull over. For a few seconds, I almost betrayed my own decision. The image of the open backpack and the notebook half sticking out stayed in my head as proof. I saw myself in the idiotic fantasy of being the right man, quickly going down, grabbing it, returning to the cabin, and leaving. It was a comfortable scenario. And that's when I understood how dangerous I was. I wasn't thinking about safety. I was thinking about clearing my conscience. They knew that. That's what the trail was for. When the plastic crate rolled onto the track, I noticed another layer of the plan. It didn't come haphazardly. It came at the right time, at the right angle, as if someone had rehearsed it. And the stones didn't hit where they would cause an accident. They hit where they would make noise and create doubt. They wanted my curiosity, my need to check, my professional reflexes. No blow was major. It was a sequence of small provocations to lure me away from the only place where I had an advantage. Behind glass and steel, with the engine running and the door closed. My clarity of vision came from a simple thought. I didn't need to win. I just needed not to participate. I increased my speed instead of braking, without recklessness, just to get out of range of whatever they were throwing. The truck responded heavily, but it responded. In the right mirror, I saw the pickup truck's headlights flash for half a second, and then go out again. I saw two silhouettes move, one in the cab, the other further back, as if assessing whether it was worth following me. I searched with my eyes for any sign of human structure, anything that would take away their advantage of isolation. The next exit was an old access road to a small rest area, dimly lit, but light nonetheless. I signaled late on purpose and entered the loop without slowing down too much. Midway through the curve, another bump from behind. They were still close. I resisted the urge to look back and focused on what I could control: direction, distance, light. The rest area was almost empty, but there were two cars parked near a lamppost and a pole with a camera. I stopped the truck facing the exit, engine running, ready to leave. I didn't get out. I didn't open the door. I stood there with the truck vibrating beneath me, hands on the steering wheel, short of breath. Looking in the mirror, I saw the pickup truck pass by the entrance without turning, like an animal that senses bright light and backs away. It slowed down for a second and then continued. When the darkness swallowed its headlights, I realized I was trembling in a way that didn't match my invincible persona. I called emergency services and gave an approximate location, described the trail of objects, the sound of crying that seemed like a recording, the pickup truck without headlights. I didn't expect a perfect response. I stayed there only long enough for my body to remember that I was still alive, and then I moved on. The sun began to streak across the horizon, and the light brought no relief. The brighter it got, the more real it seemed. I thought about the backpack, the folded coat, the teddy bear sitting there as if someone had rehearsed innocence. I thought about how my body responded to crying before my head did, and I thought about what would have happened if I had stopped just for a minute. The guilt came in waves, the kind you can't argue with, and along with it came a new fear, clean, rational, not fear of ghosts, fear of people who understand empathy as a tool and create scenarios to exploit someone's best reflection. I never knew if there was a real victim that night, or if it was all a staged event to trap a driver willing to get out. That's the part that doesn't add up. What does add up is the feeling. The road can deceive you with silence, with tiredness, with haste. But none of that struck me as much as realizing that someone can use a child's sound to open the door of a grown man. Even today, when I'm driving around late at night and see anything out of place, my body remembers before my mind. I don't stop. I don't get off. I keep going until I see the nearest light, and I let you know. And as much as I want to believe that this has made me cold, I know the truth. This has made me someone who lives with the question they left as a gift. What if, one day, I just walk past when it's real? If you're enjoying these chilling stories, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any more terrifying tales to come. Now, get ready for another journey down dark and mysterious roads. I learned the hard way that the worst place to lose control isn't on the road. It's inside your own truck. When I landed my first real contract, I was still in the phase of proving I deserved to be there. Fresh from a small fleet, I became an independent contractor for a transport company that paid better and charged more. Tight deadlines, active tracking, photos of the seal, checking stops. I thought I was careful, but I wasn't. It was October in West Texas, heading towards New Mexico with a closed cargo box and dry goods. I hadn't slept well because I'd spent the previous night planning routes on the app so I wouldn't lose bonus points. Simple rule: stop in the right place. Don't improvise. I'd been improvising since the beginning of the day. The mistake started small. I forgot the water jug in the yard. I ignored the add blue light because it still worked. And I trusted the fuel gauge too much, which had remained stable all week. Around 1:40 a.m., on a long empty stretch, the needle plummeted. Low fuel light came on. I looked at the GPS and felt my stomach clench. The next major gas station was almost 60 miles away. The map showed a smaller bus stop 18 miles away off the highway, at an exit I didn't recognize. I had two bad options: keep going, hoping not to die on the side of the road without water or diesel, or divert to a place I hadn't planned on. Math won out over intuition. The exit was narrow, the asphalt patched, the signs rusty. The truck stop appeared after a bend, like something assembled and forgotten. Old pump canopy, partial lighting, 2 cold lamps working, and the rest off. The parking lot was too big to be empty. No cars, no trucks, no music, no barking. Just whined and a thin electric hum coming from somewhere. The detail that stopped me was the shop door. It was open, only slightly ajar, as if someone had gone in and not closed it. And yet, there was light inside. I should have left. But I needed a bathroom, water, and if possible a few gallons to get back to the highway with some leeway. I parked facing the entrance, headlights illuminating the corridor, and got out, repeating to myself that everything was under control. The store smelled of old dust and warm plastic. Shelves were almost empty, the drinks aisle was dark, but the hum continued, constant, as if something had been on there for hours. At the counter, the cash register was on, a blue screen with a stopped cursor. In the corner, a microwave gleamed with its clock at 0. On the floor, a crumpled glass, still damp. It didn't look like it had been abandoned for months. It looked like it had been left there recently. I went to the bathroom. Too clean. No toilet paper, no soap, spotless mirror. a level of cleanliness that didn't match the rest of the place. On my way back, I grabbed 2 bottles of water and left them on the counter. I called once. Nothing. Then I heard a short noise at the back of the store. A light, quick dragging sound like the sole of a shoe on a smooth floor. I froze. Not a second sound came. My tired mind tried to explain. Wind, pipe, shelf. But the sound had direction. I dropped the water and left. Quickly, without running, pretending I'd just given up on the call. Outside, the wind gave me immediate relief. I climbed into the cabin, closed the door, and locked it. I've never been so grateful for a lock. I tried to pull up to the pumps, but the machines looked like a stage set. A lit screen, a broken reader, electrical tape. I went back to the cab and decided to leave. I had enough fuel to get back to the highway if I didn't stay there burning diesel idling. I pulled out of the parking lot and saw the main highway on the horizon. Within 2 minutes, I was speeding again. On my way back to the cabin, I saw a fingerprint on the driver's side window, on the outside, at the height someone would lean against to peek. I tried to convince myself it was mine, but it was fresh, oily, as if it had been left minutes before. I wiped it with my forearm and erased it, as if erasing the mark would erase the possibility. When I started the truck, the dashboard light illuminated my face, and I felt that irrational certainty of being watched. I adjusted the rearview mirror down slightly, an automatic gesture of someone who doesn't want to face the darkness of the sleeper cab. I hitched a gear and drove off, my high beams sweeping across the empty yard. On the access road before returning to the highway, dust entered through the ventilation. The air became stuffy and the human smell inside the cabin grew stronger. Damp clothes and metal, a mixture that wasn't mine. I opened the window and the wind came in, but the smell didn't go away. It seemed trapped in the fabric, as if it originated there. I thought about stopping immediately and checking everything. But stopping on that narrow road meant accepting that I had nowhere to run. The alternative was to continue until I reached a place with light and people. I chose to continue, trying to keep a cool head as if this were a professional decision, not a controlled panic. Every minute I invented an explanation to avoid going crazy. Maybe the smell was coming from the store. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the clicking sound was a loose part. But the truck also seemed different, with a slight oscillation to the passenger side with each correction, as if some weight was shifting. I wanted to look back. I wanted to confirm and resolve things. But confirming meant choosing an action, and I didn't have a good action. So I did the only thing that seemed rational to me. I sought help before looking for proof. I picked up the phone with my left hand and called 911. I said, I was a truck driver. I had made a stop off route, and now there were signs that someone was inside my cab. The operator didn't laugh, didn't ask silly questions. He asked for location, a description of the vehicle, and advised me not to stop on the shoulder. He told me to continue to the next rest area, keep the doors locked, and if it was safe, not to look back. I said I'd heard a crackling sound and smelled something. He asked if I'd left any doors unlocked. I hesitated. I remembered rushing down to check the pump, irritated, and going back upstairs without the discipline I swore I had. I replied that I wasn't sure. On the other end, a short silence, no judgment, just a record. Just a few miles from the rest area, I saw a car stopped on the shoulder with its hazard lights on. It was a common sight, and yet in that context, it became bait. My instinct was to slow down and offer help, as any decent driver would. But behind that instinct, I felt something else. The desire to make it seem normal. To prove to myself that I was still the one in control. I drove straight past without slowing down. And at that same instant, I heard a faint sound behind me. I didn't look. I kept my voice steady on the phone, describing the rest area sign as it appeared. Illuminated. The operator asked me to park under the lights and wait with my hands visible when the patrol car arrived. I obeyed as if following a checklist, because a checklist is the only thing that holds a rookie back when their body wants to run. That's when the anomaly occurred inside the truck. First, there was a smell. A musty human odor, damp clothes and warm skin mixed with something metallic. I couldn't tell if it was coming from the air or the fabric of the seat. I gripped the steering wheel and tried to keep my breathing low. Then, A dry, short crack came from behind the passenger seat. It didn't sound like dashboard plastic. It sounded like metal that had been touched and then come loose. I didn't look. I did what instinct dictates when the brain wants to deny it. I pretended not to hear. I gripped the steering wheel tightly and searched for any light on the horizon. The truck seemed heavier with a slight sway when I corrected the direction, as if something were shifting weight on the right side. I glanced in the passenger side mirror for just a second. Darkness. But the sleeper curtain, which I always keep fastened with an elastic band, seemed slightly loose. The rest area appeared as a lit rectangle on the side of the highway. Few spaces, yellow lights, a concrete bathroom. I parked the truck right next to the light and didn't turn off the engine. I got out with my hands visible and stood near the driver's door, without going back into the cab. I heard my own heart beating louder than the engine. It took 8 minutes for the police car to arrive. 8 minutes during which the smell persisted, as if it were inside the fabric. When the police car pulled up, I felt my legs go weak. 2 officers got out, told me to stand back, and asked me not to go back into the cabin. They opened the passenger door first. One of them carefully pulled back the curtain of the sleeper cab and shone a flashlight on it. I saw his face change, not with a scream, just with a different breath. Inside, 2 people huddled in the corner. 2 young, thin men, covered in dust, wearing gloves. One held a small backpack. The other had a seal cutter strapped to his belt as a tool. They were awake, alert, like people waiting for the right moment. They didn't run. They raised their hands slowly, as if the dangerous part was still to come, not as if it were over. The police officers took them out one by one, handcuffed them, and put them against the patrol car. I stood there, unable to ask any proper questions. A police officer pointed to the side of the truck, near the cab ladder. There was a mark of fresh mud and a scratch on the finish. They had climbed up while I was in the store, not in the rest area, at the gas station. At that moment, the isolated noise in the back of the store made sense. The damp glass made sense. The open door made sense. The place wasn't abandoned. It was a hunting ground. Later, at the local department, I signed a short report and listened enough to understand that it was method, not madness. Cargo theft, cabin raids in remote areas, people preying on newcomers, and makeshift stops. I didn't discover the complete plan. Nobody gave me the whole story. Maybe because it didn't matter. I already understood the essential part. For miles, I drove thinking I was alone, when I wasn't. The next morning, I continued my journey late, lost bonus points, and got a scolding. But I got out alive. And since that night, I can no longer approach a nearly normal place without first smelling it, without looking at the open door and wondering what might be on the other side. Sometimes in the silence of the cabin, I still hear a crackling sound from the passenger side, and my body reacts before my mind remembers that I'm safe. Because the trauma wasn't seeing those men. It was understanding that my truck, for a few minutes, ceased to be a shelter and became a trap. I had almost 16 years of experience on the road when this happened, and I already had a dangerous flaw. I relied too much on my own, this can be overcome mentality. That month I was driving independently, hauling packaged appliances, a difficult load to secure and even worse to return if there was a problem. I left Bakersfield in the late afternoon heading towards Arizona and entered the emptiest stretch of road close to midnight. I should have stopped sooner. The truck's headlights had been dim for weeks. They wouldn't turn off, they just illuminated as if I were looking at the world through a dirty window. I'd been putting off the maintenance because I was in debt, and because, in busy stretches, the lights from other cars masked everything. But that night there was no traffic. No traffic lights in the distance, just the lane markings appearing and disappearing in front of the hood. I was coming off 2 bad days. A canceled freight shipment, expensive diesel, and I had that feeling of always playing catch-up. I had done the math and knew that if I was late and missed the unloading window, I would pay a daily fee and still risk having the freight payment rejected. That explains the stubbornness. On the road, the difference between prudence and stubbornness is sometimes just the balance on your account. Before entering the emptier stretch of road, I stopped at a simple gas station just to get coffee and check the straps. I took pictures of the seals and the manifest, a habit I developed to avoid becoming a hostage to problems that appear out of nowhere. Everything seemed normal. What I didn't do, and should have done, was accept that a weak headlight at night on a deserted road is not a minor detail. It's an invitation. The desert has its own kind of silence, but there, it seemed too quiet. Nothing banged against the car's body. Nothing shattered on the windshield. The only constant sound was the engine and occasionally an intermittent hiss in the onboard computer, as if someone turned the channel selector for a second and then let go. It was about an hour before dawn that I saw the first thing out of place. From a distance, it looked like trash on the road, an uneven sheen. I lifted my foot off the accelerator and moved closer. When my headlights reached it, I saw an open hard case and a long box torn at one end, right in the middle of the road, not on the shoulder, and it didn't look like something the wind had pushed there. It looked like it had been placed there. I ignored the right impulse, which was to keep going and forget about it. But I thought about a flat tire, an expensive bumper, and also that silly thought of those who still believe the road is a community. What if someone back there needs help? I slowed down, signaled, and pulled over. When I pulled over because of the tackle box and the fishing gear, I still tried to do it the right way. Hazard lights on, cabin locked, minimum timeout. I was trying to convince myself that I wasn't being an idiot, but I ignored what mattered most. I was alone, and those who set up bait usually count on that. The rational part of me told me to stay in the cabin. The other part said I should just look with the flashlight and come back. I went down. The air was cold and dry. The silence made my footsteps sound like noise. I walked looking more at the darkness than at the object, because I wasn't scared yet. I was curious, and curiosity is a polite way of putting yourself at risk. Up close, the case wasn't a toolbox. It was an equipment case with cutout foam inside, empty. The box had a fragile sticker and was full of crumpled paper, as if someone had taken out the contents and left the rest. On the asphalt next to it, there were recent tire marks, skid marks, and hard acceleration marks. And near the marks, a fallen coffee cup from a gas station, still damp, and a blue disposable glove. Small signs, but too recent to be left there alone. The still damp cup and the disposable glove were what snapped me out of curiosity mode. This was human and recent. It wasn't old trash. The tire tracks were from someone who stopped there, saw it, decided, and left quickly. It was at that point that the fear truly began, not as panic, but as the cold certainty that I had crossed a line. That combination clicked in my head too late. Bait. The briefcase and the box were positioned to force me to slow down, maybe even stop. Someone had already stopped there, and I had just done the same. Normalcy was shattered by a metallic snap coming from my own truck. Short, dry, like a door slamming. I turned and saw the lid of a side compartment swinging open. I was sure it was locked. On the other side of the trailer, a low figure moved and disappeared out of the flashlight's range. I didn't think. I ran. I climbed into the cab, almost tripping, turned the key, and started the car with my heart in my throat. In the rearview mirror, a man appeared in the lane and came towards me. He wasn't a monster. He was an ordinary guy. Cap, sweatshirt, jeans. What wasn't ordinary was his manner. He didn't wave. He didn't ask for help. He walked straight, as if I should obey. In his hand, something reflected the faint light, a long piece of metal. I started off while still halfway to the shoulder, pulling the steering wheel back onto the road. I felt the trailer sway. I heard a thud on the side like something was being thrown. And then the onboard computer opened with a loud hiss, and a voice came through the channel, dry, emotionless. "Go downstairs and get the box, now." When the voice came through the CB radio, I felt anger before fear. CB radios are almost intimate for truck drivers. Hearing someone using it to give me orders was like someone entering my cab without touching the door handle. I thought about turning it off, but I left it on for a simple reason. I wanted to know what they wanted, so I wouldn't be surprised. It didn't sound like a truck driver's voice. It was an order, not conversation. I pressed the PTT button. My voice came out faltering. "Who are you? You've already stopped. Don't complicate things." I sped up, ignoring the rules, ignoring common sense. In the mirror, headlights flashed behind me, low beams. from a vehicle that had its lights off on the shoulder further ahead. An old pickup truck, its light flickering on the bumps. It entered the lane and stuck close. I was loaded, heavy, and my weak headlights were making me too blind to play around with racing. The chase was technical. They didn't need to catch me. They just needed to tire me out, push me to the side of the road, into a dark entrance, into a dead end. The pickup truck alternated between high beams, approaching and retreating as if gauging my reaction. At one point, I turned on my hazard lights, pretending I was going to pull over. They stuck to my side, ready to guide me. I held my line and didn't give them any space. On the CB radio, the voice returned, even more irritated. "On the next return trip, you're going to stop." I grabbed my cell phone with one hand and tried to dial 911. The screen illuminated the booth and almost blinded me. It rang, then dropped. No signal. I cursed and focused on the only way out that made sense. Finding light. Any light. A yard, a gas station, a way station, something with a camera. That's when the pickup truck's amber flashing light on the roof came on. A simple service-type flashing light. For a second, my brain wanted to obey, wanted to pull over, because it looks official. And I understood the trick. They were relying on conditioned reflexes, not force. I didn't obey. I kept going. I saw a way station sign in the distance, closed but illuminated by safety lights. I swerved the truck into the deceleration lane and entered the yard as if fleeing a fire. It was during this movement that I saw, for an instant, a small glint on the asphalt right in my lane line. There wasn't time to swerve without risking going off the road. The impact was subtle, almost negligible. The problem came soon after. The steering wheel pulled to the right slowly and treacherously, as if the ground had changed its mind. It wasn't an immediate explosion. It was a loss of pressure. The kind of thing that convinces you to pull over because you start thinking about the wheel, the rim, the damage. They knew this. That was exactly the point. I stopped under the brightest light, locked the doors, and held my cell phone in my hand. The pickup truck pulled in behind me and stopped at the entrance to the yard out of the light. A man got out, the same one with the cap. He stood there, without approaching. He raised his hands, as if trying to appear calm, but I saw that he was hiding something elongated near his leg. He shouted something that I didn't hear through the window. This time the signal appeared, weak, but it appeared. I called 911 and gave the location as best I could, describing the pickup truck, the flashing lights, the voice on the cable car, the decoy on the road. While I was talking, the pickup truck slowly reversed, as if trying to avoid the camera. The man got back in. They stayed a few more seconds and then left, swallowed by the darkness. At the way station, after they disappeared, the worst part wasn't the blown light or the truck cooling down. It was the waiting. I kept looking out of the illuminated area, waiting for another vehicle to appear, waiting for it to come back with more people. When the police car arrived, the officer asked the usual questions, and I understood another part of the real world. Without a license plate, without a face, without clear evidence, I was just another late-night report. The metal piece on the asphalt confirmed that I hadn't made it up, but it didn't give away a license plate, a motive, or explain how someone got into my CB channel. The police officer found the part near the entrance, where I had felt the impact. It was a small tire spreader with metal spikes designed to puncture slowly. He wrote it down, mentioned patrolling, said that this happens. That sentence made me want to smash my phone. The police escorted me to a station further down the road, where I was able to inspect the truck with lights and people nearby. There were no arrests. There was no definitive answer. Just a police report and emptiness. Then, when dawn broke and I started driving again, the shame came. Shame for having stopped. Shame for having gotten off. Shame for having given myself the chance. I found myself reconstructing the exact minute when I could have chosen differently, as if that would change anything. It doesn't. The road doesn't give you back. I still drive those roads. It's my job. But since that night, I don't see the desert as a backdrop. I see it as cover. I fixed the headlights the following week, paying with a card I couldn't afford. And I never again got out to just take a look at anything stopped in the middle of the road. Today I drive by 3 rules that were born from that night. Any anomaly on the road is someone else's problem, unless I have no choice. If I need to stop, I stop where there are lights and cameras, even if it costs more. And maintenance that affects visibility is not for later, because what happened there wasn't paranormal. It was ordinary people using the right scenario to turn curiosity into a trap, and that's much worse than anything I've ever heard in road stories.